Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for clicking on today's video. Today I thought we would chat about how to dress more sustainably. Since we are at the start of the year, I know many of you have told me you are going to try living with less, buying less, and just dressing more intentionally this year. So I thought it was a good time to share the ways that I try to dress more sustainably. We each have a part to play, obviously, in this, and a lot of these are very simple changes that make a big difference when you add them all up. So if you are interested in figuring out how to make your wardrobe last longer, make your clothes go a little bit farther, keep watching. The very first way that we can dress more sustainably is by taking care of what we own. Now, I know that doesn't really make sense and go together. However, it does actually allow us to dress more consciously, because when we take care of the things that we already own, it allows us to grow a greater appreciation for those items, and it also helps us to kind of increase our respect for the people that have actually made our garments. And that is such a key piece here. I think that when I learned how workers were treated in all of these different countries where most of our clothing is made, it really made me take a step back and think about the way that I was actually treating those clothes that I was buying from the people who were making the garments. They get paid very low wages. They're often in very harmful working conditions. And so the least that we can do is show respect to what they have handmade and created. So taking care of your items might be, using a debobbler from time to time to get lint off of sweaters and coats, anything that gets really pilly, steaming your garments to make them last a little longer and to just look crisper, washing them in the right ways, following the guidelines that are on the care tags, and also just fixing things when they need to be fixed. So little rips and tears here and there doesn't make a garment useless. They can actually be fixed and continue to be worn. So this is my first step in learning how to dress sustainably. The next way to dress more sustainably is to adopt the mindset of less is more. So this is something that I started from the very beginning, kind of when I was doing my major declutters, which I will link down below for you. And the reason why I say this is because a sustainable wardrobe is not one that is chock-a-block full. And the reason why this is not really a sustainable route to dressing ourselves is because it's actually taking away more than it's giving. And what I mean by that is that when we have super full wardrobes, we're often actually overwhelmed by what we own. And a lot of the time, things go unworn for months, sometimes even years. It also promotes the idea of overconsumption and kind of keeps us in this cycle of always wanting more, always wanting what's trending, what we see on social media. And I feel like it's harmful to our mental health in that way as well, because when we're constantly desiring new stuff, we're not really feeling grateful for what we already own, if that makes sense. Another way that a super full wardrobe is kind of hindering the process of dressing sustainably is that it takes a longer time to develop our own personal style. When we have a full closet, it's most often full of things that we have been influenced to purchase. And I'm only saying this honestly from my own personal experience, because I have been there, done that, and gotten rid of so many things that I got simply because I liked how it looked on another person or because it was just trending in general. And when we are buying these types of things, we're not actually supporting our own development of our own personal style. And so when you have a smaller wardrobe, you actually learn how to get creative, accessorize, put things together in different ways that are actually true to how you are expressing yourself. The next way to dress more sustainably is to not be afraid to shop secondhand, but also to not put too much pressure on yourself when it comes to buying the things that you actually really want and need in your wardrobe. So this is kind of like a two-part thing. For shopping secondhand, I have found over the past couple of years that it's actually really discouraging personally when I am forcing myself to only shop secondhand. Now, there are tons of people that do this and are super successful at it. People who know how to tailor their items perfectly so that they fit properly after they've bought something thrifted, and others who just tend to fit a lot of different types of clothing without having to tailor them. But as someone who is a petite, I'm 4'11" for those of you who don't know, I find it very difficult to shop secondhand and get something that is, in good quality condition, but that also doesn't need to be hemmed or tailored. And that adds on to the cost of buying secondhand. Now, while that is fantastic that the item is, being used for a longer period of time, it often actually does make the whole process just very discouraging, like I said. So in the cases where you are, looking for a new wool coat, let's just use that for an example, and you're in the market for a pretty specific style, like a tie waist, longer style, if you go and secondhand shop and you can't find anything for weeks, for months on end, and you also can't find anything online, then honestly, in those situations, it's time to assess what your budget is and if you can buy from a sustainable brand. Now, the sustainable brands that I have seen online and also in person tend to be more expensive. And the reason why is because garment workers are often properly actually paid. They're working in better conditions and the items are not being mass manufactured, so the cost of the item actually goes up. Now, in that case, if your budget isn't big enough to afford the sustainable brands, then the next step would be to assess your other options. So oftentimes this leads us to fast fashion. And on my channel, I did a video 2 years ago saying I'm stopping buying fast fashion. And since that video, I still have the same mindset of less is more in the case of purchasing from those brands. However, I have realized that it is also better to just be considerate when we are purchasing from fast fashion retailers. So let's say your budget is $200 for a wool coat. It's not a little bit of money, but it's also not a lot of money, especially for wool. However, sometimes fast fashion brands have something within that price range that you might really, really love. And so in the cases where you're looking for an item that you actually feel that you need and will bring a lot of value to your wardrobe, it's okay to go and buy it from a fast fashion brand. As long as you have the intention of wearing it over and over year after year and treating it as a capsule item, and then going back to step number 1 that I shared, taking care of that item as well, just so that you are elongating its lifespan. In those cases, shopping secondhand is obviously the goal, but if you end up buying fast fashion, just make sure that it's intentional. The next way that we can dress a little bit more sustainably is by making use of an ask before you buy checklist. So this is something that I newly made actually this year to help myself before I purchase something and just make a purchase decision in general. And the reason why I really like this step in particular is because it makes us think before we buy. So it really helps to prevent impulsive purchases, which often don't lead us down the best road or the most sustainable route. So this is exactly what is on my ask before you buy checklist. And it's just honestly a list of questions that I ask myself before I purchase something. So for example, is this something that I need right now in this moment? A lot of the time it's not, and it's just something that I have been influenced to want or desire from social media. It still happens to me. It's probably not ever going to stop happening to me because social media is very influential. Obviously, we know this. Another question that I like to ask myself that's also super important is it in my budget? And obviously, a lot of the time, if I randomly want to buy something, it's not going to be in my budget, meaning I haven't actually planned to buy that item. It's just kind of popped up in my mind as a desire. And so in that case, I would put it on my wish list and wait on it a little bit. When we're beginning to try and dress more sustainably, it's totally fine to just keep the ask before you buy checklist on the notes app in your phone, or even in a little notebook if that's more your jam, and just literally physically refer to the list every time we decide, oh, I would really like to get that. It's not always going to be like that. I feel like over time it'll get easier and those questions will remain in our mind, but it's kind of like a training process in a sense where we really need to train ourselves to think of these things before we bite the bullet and buy stuff. Okay, and my last tip for dressing more sustainably is to create a savings bucket, folder, whatever you might want to call it, for your most desired wish list items. Now, what I mean by this is essentially, obviously, if you have a wish list of stuff that you would like to get and you have, for example, let's go back to the wool coat, on that list, you can actually create a savings bucket for that item if you don't actually need to purchase it right now in this moment. And this does a few different things. Number one, it is going to teach us how to save better. Obviously, that's a plus. It's also going to allow us to shop from a more sustainable brand if we are able to save for a longer period of time and kind of increase what we are willing to spend on that item. And in turn, the quality is probably going to be much, much better than if we were to purchase it from a fast fashion brand. Another positive on this list that is kind of indirect is that if we are saving for a longer period of time and just kind of holding off from the purchase and saving enough so that we can get like a really good quality item, it's actually kind of teaching us to appreciate that item more because there's more effort that's being put into actually buying it rather than going to Zara and like picking up a random coat in person as soon as you think, okay, like I want to buy a wool coat, if that makes sense. And there you have it. That is how I personally am trying to dress more sustainably. I hope that you found these tips helpful. I would love to know if you've implemented any of these ones into your own lifestyle and shopping habits, or maybe you have some of your own ways that you dress and shop more sustainably. If you do, feel free to comment them down below. And as always, if you did find this video helpful or enjoyable, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. I appreciate all of your support on here. And if you're new here, thank you for watching my video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on your way out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.